We'll get started here. Welcome everyone to our Authors on Tap reading series. I'm Javier Ramirez, and along with Kristen Gilbert, we run Exile and Bookville. We are proud and excited to finally say that Exile is broadcasting from our very own bookstore and on Chicago's Michigan Avenue in the Fine Arts Building. We've been hosting events virtually from Kristen's apartment, seems like 1,000 years ago. And so it's really nice to be in our actual physical bookstore. So thanks everyone for coming. And thanks for everyone for supporting us through our storeless existence. It's actually happening, it's real now. And this day couldn't get any more special. Our first author event is with our BFF Claire Fuller and new BFF Kate Racculia. Thank you both for being here, for taking your time out for this event. Claire and Kate will be discussing Claire's new novel, Unsettled Ground, which came out just 2 days ago. Congratulations on that, Claire.
Thank you very much.
Claire is a prize-winning author, an amazing author, and is coming to us from the UK. She's the author of 3 other wonderful novels, Our Endless Numbered Days, Swimming Lessons, and Bitter Orange, all from her US publisher, Tin House. She'll be in conversation with Kate Racculia, who is coming to us from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. She is the author of Bellweather Rhapsody, and most recently, Tuesday Mooney Talks to Ghost, which both have made the Exile favorite book list. Thank you so much for being here, Kate. Kate's gonna give what I'm sure is gonna be an awesome read from Unsettled Ground while Claire looks on thoughtfully. And then we'll take some questions after, but everyone enjoy the show. You can purchase copies of Unsettled Ground and Tuesday Mooney Talks to Ghost at our store now, and also throw the respective links in the chat. All those copies will come with signed book plates. And yeah, everyone enjoy the show. And thanks, Kate and Claire, for being here, and have a good show. Thank you.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. Claire, do you want to give any setup before I do the reading in a very not English accent?
Yeah, I will. Perhaps I should. So I'll give a little kind of overview of the book and explain the bit that Kate is going to read. So I think Exile in Bookville, I've never come across any other hosts or bookstores that have suggested this, but I love this idea that the interviewer reads something from the interviewee's book. So Kate is going to read in her lovely American accent some English people in a pub. But Unsettled Ground is about Jeannie and Julius Cedar, who are twins, and they're 51-year-old twins who still live with their mother in rural isolation and relative poverty in the county of Wiltshire in England. And Jeannie, she's been diagnosed with a heart condition, and so she stayed at home helping her mother with the garden, and they grow vegetables in order to raise a little bit of money. Julius goes out to do odd jobs and bring in a little bit of money as well. So they're very kind of hand to mouth. They don't have any transport, they have very little technology, they don't have bank accounts, they have had very little education and no qualifications, but they have managed for 51 years in that way. And the book opens when their mother Dot dies. She has a stroke. And from that point on, the twins learn that she had accrued a lot of debt, which they have to take on. And they learn that the cottage that they thought was theirs actually is owned by the landlord. And because they haven't got enough money, any money really, they cannot afford their mother's funeral or to bury her properly. So they decide to bury her in the garden. And so most of the novel is from Jeannie's point of view, but the bit that Kate is going to read is actually a tiny little bit from Julius's point of view, after he has just started digging the grave in the garden. So I think that should set you up nicely, Kate, I think.
Perfect. In the shop, Julius dithers. He's low on tobacco and rolling papers, and he needs a pint in the pub. What to do with the money from the guttering job? If he wants to get any work, he'll need credit for his mobile phone. He buys 10 pounds worth and some tobacco. In the pub, he plugs his mobile in to charge. He sits at the bar next to Jenks, sips at a pint of bitter to make it last, and rolls a thin cigarette. Heard about your mum, Jenks, a scrawny Scotsman, whom Julius has rarely seen out of the public bar of the Plough, tips his glass toward his mouth, and Julius sees his top lip reach out to the beer like a snail feeling its way. What a bummer, Jenks says when he swallowed. Yep, Julius says, licking his cigarette paper, sticking it down. Thanks. He waves the cigarette at Jenks and goes out the back to smoke. He has a blister on his palm from digging, and he rubs the bubble of it across his lips, feeling the fluid move beneath the skin. He considers if there's a legal requirement for the depth of a grave. He wonders again whether they're allowed to do what they're doing. Sod it, he doesn't care if they aren't. He's taken off the turf and has gone down a spade's depth, which isn't enough. Won't be enough for Jeannie. And it would be an utter cock-up if the foxes started digging, or Maud. He rubs the bristles along his jaw, smokes his cigarette, thinks about what the Rawsons say is owing, again sees Rawson shouting nothing up the stairs to his wife, remembers the contents of the envelopes in his coat pocket. Fuck it, he thinks. Fuck it all. When he's back at the bar and another 10 minutes has passed, Jenks says, you got a text from that bit of toddy who lives over the fish and chip shop. Something about a boiler. Bloody hell, Jenks. Read everything, why don't you? Shall I bring in my diary next time? Jenks smirks, and after checking his phone, Julius finishes off the rest of his beer in one open-throated gulp. Boilers aren't his specialism. He doesn't really have a specialism, and he doesn't have his tool rucksack with him, but he wheels his bike through the village to Shelley Swift's. She's wearing a leopard print top and a denim skirt when she answers the door, and lilac lipstick that she surely doesn't put on for work. Bloody boiler, there's no hot water, she says, as he follows her up the stairs. The boiler is on a wall in the kitchen, and as soon as he inspects the hole in the cover, he sees that the pilot light has gone out. He pushes 2 buttons, the gas ignites, the tiny blue flame shows through the hole, and they hear the boiler kick in. You're amazing, Shelley Swift says, and when he turns, she doesn't move back. Her nose and mouth are out of focus, but her eyes, lashes clotted with makeup, and hazel irises with a circumference of a deeper brown, catch him and hold him. He wants to kiss her, but feels he is too tall, too stooped, all elbows and knees. He is unused to an encounter like this, out of practice. Can I use your toilet, he says, and she laughs that husky laugh and lets him go. In the bathroom under the window is a shelf unit crammed with books. He pulls one out. Just like her mother, the title reads in raised silver letters. Beneath the words is a close-up of some scrubby bushes and a patch of bare soil. Just visible in the earth is a woman's ear with an earring through the lobe. He shoves the book back. On the landing at the top of the stairs, as he is saying that she should text him if anything else goes wrong, Shelley Swift kisses him, her mouth slightly open, her tongue touching his lips, and he's aware of the waxy greasiness of her lipstick. He doesn't exactly kiss her in return, too shocked by the feel and the taste of her. When they pull apart, she laughs once more, and he almost runs down the stairs and out through the door. All the way home, he rides his bike without holding on, as though he were 13 again, using his knees to steer so that he can hold his fingers to his nose and smell the lemony scent of Shelley Swift's bathroom soap. Was that weird?
It was weird. It was brilliantly weird. I quite like hearing Americans say bloody.
Yes. I'm like, cock up? Like, and a bit of titty. Like,
yeah, it's a bit of toddy. I can't do an American accent. It was great.
Good. And I loved that. So audience, I asked, I was like, Claire, is there a section that's like particularly good to read? And that was the one she suggested. And I think There's so many things I love about this book, but that description of Jenks's mustache like a snail moving towards the is so, it's one of the moments in the book where you feel there's almost like a loamy quality to the book. Like it's there's a lot of texture. It's really rich with all these details and this physicality. There's so much to smell and touch, but also in a way that feels kind of, there's something about that that's a little creepy.
Yeah.
like in that, like kind of, it's a little gothic. So I guess that's my first question to you. Like it is a book about land, right? It is a book about place. It is a book about gardening and being of the land. And the style of the book with this sort of, kind of fecundity to it is all of a piece of that. Was that intentional, or did that just kind of happen because you were in it?
Yeah, I think it wasn't intentional. I don't write like that. I don't write with intention in a weird way, or certainly not my first draft, which takes me a year and a half or something. I just let it flow, although it doesn't ever feel like it's flowing. It feels like it's kind of,
Yep.
Yeah. One word after another is really painful, but I don't think about those things. And so it's delightful when they happen. If the book is about the land and the earth, and Jenks is top lip, I describe as a snail.
Yep.
Feeling its way. It's not. I haven't thought about that, but I love that works, and that my brain is able to think that way, because if I had to sit down and think, right now I need some kind of insect in here, that wouldn't
happen. Yeah.
That wouldn't happen.
And I found sometimes like thinking too much about it makes the magic go away, right? Like you have to trust your subconscious in some way to like know what it's doing.
Yeah. It's like kind of catching something out the corner of your eye. If you turn to look at it, it will have gone. You have to just know that it's there and kind of trust that it will come, and not look at it straight on. If you look at it straight on, then it's gone.
Yeah. If you'll forgive the continued gardening metaphors, was there like, what was the seed for this book in terms of like, did it start with the twins? Did it start with the idea of burying a mother in a garden? Like, where did it come from?
Well, it started with a place. So I have to kind of give a little bit away to explain that, but there comes a point where the twins are evicted from their cottage, and various things happen. But at one point they end up in a caravan in the woods. And I think in America that's called a camper trailer. You would call it a camper trailer. It's,
like a trailer.
A trailer, but sometimes trailers have a motor in them, don't they? So it is towed behind a car. It doesn't have its own engine. So Jeannie and Julius end up in one of these. They have to live in it for a little while, and it's in a really bad state. And my son found one of these in the woods near to where I live. This was kind of while I was at the end of writing Bitter Orange, the previous book. And so I was kind of thinking about what might be the next one. And he said, you've got to come out and see this caravan because it's awful and you'll love it. Because he knows that I like really weird places, unusual places. I will go and see anything in case that it might be interesting. So we went out there, and it was a very small one. It only slept 2 people, and it had obviously been there for years. It had once been white, but was now green from having been under the trees. Somebody had smashed all the windows. The door was no longer in place, and inside, whoever had been living there had left bits of bedding and other disgusting things that I didn't even want to look at too closely. But it was really atmospheric. I often describe it as kind of haunted, but not by ghosts, by the people who had once lived there. There was a real sense, that someone had been there, and had gone. And it just made me start thinking, who would that have been? What circumstances would have taken them to this place? How would they have lived there? Because there was no electricity, there was no sanitation, there was no road to it. And then what would their life have been like when they left? Did it carry on kind of going down, or did something better happen for them?
Yeah.
And so Jeannie was kind of created in my head from that place. And I, rather than start with a caravan, I kind of went back a little bit in time to see what would have taken her there. So, yeah. So that was a seed, really. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And I mean, when you mention atmosphere, the atmosphere of this novel is so, when we talk of atmosphere and hauntings, it does feel haunted, but like, because the point of view is of the ghosts, it feels like home. Like it feels like, well, this is what life is. And there are moments when I don't want to spoil too many things, but when she goes to stay with Bridget for a while, who lives in a very sort of like modern kind of contemporary home, that's where things feel very strange, right? Like all like the microwave and the television and the furniture, it all feels very, very foreign to be in that world. Yeah.
Because it's all new to Jeannie, she has never loaded a dishwasher before. And so she puts everything in upwards so that, that all the cups fill with water, because it was quite fun going and looking at those ordinary household things and just imagining, if you've never seen one before, you know that people have dishwashers.
Right.
But she had never even watched television before, really. She'd never stayed in any other bed except her own for her whole 51 years. So all that was very new to her, and television was new to her, and having lunch or dinner on your lap on a tray in front of the TV and watching Broadchurch, as we mentioned.
There's an excellent little like Broadchurch aside. I forget what it was, something like the family is grieving and they do not touch one another. Yeah. Like, yes, that is a description of Broadchurch. It was really good.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, no, go ahead.
In my head, for a lot of the novel, Jeannie was kind of Olivia Colman.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I did see her as that really helped to see her, not as the character in Broadchurch, but as that actor.
Yeah, oh yeah, Olivia Colman, because Jeannie is there is a strength to her that she doesn't necessarily see, and the novel is kind of the story of her growing up finally at 50, like 52, kind of growing up into this new person. And Olivia Colman could knock that out of the park. Did you think of like, who is Julius? Did you cast it in your brain?
No, I didn't cast it. I kind of try not to do that, because it feels presumptuous. That I think that might actually happen. No, I just used Olivia Colman almost because sometimes if you have a specific person, that kind of just helps create the character for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I never based characters, their characteristics on a person. It was just, I could see Olivia Colman pretending to be Jeannie, kind of. Yeah.
That leads perfectly to my next question, is about how you create characters, because this book, there's a lot of different people in it, even though it is primarily Jeannie and Julius's story, but everyone walks on fully formed. Like, all of these people have that solidity and texture and specificity that you really love in fiction, right? Like, they're people and you know them immediately. So how do you create them? Do you discover them as you write along the way, or do you do a lot of pre-writing? Or
no, I definitely discover them along the way, and sometimes somebody walks into a room and starts saying something and I think, who the hell are you?
Yeah. I just see how this plays out.
I don't plan, I don't plot, I just let things happen, and sometimes that genuinely does happen. But I have to trust to go with it, and eventually I work out who they are and what they're doing there, or else finally, in the final draft, maybe they get deleted if they're not interesting enough.
Unceremoniously walked off stage.
Yeah. But sometimes I do kind of get stuck, and somebody comes in, or there's a conversation between two characters and I don't know where it's going, and why are you saying this, and what do you really think? And so sometimes what I'll do is open up a new document, and I always start it with the title, We Need to Talk About. And so it's me having a conversation with the characters, like, you know, I say to Jeannie, right, we need to talk about what you think, what you really think about Stu. You know, he's a character in there. So I'll open the document and type, we need to talk about Stu. And then I will type, so Jeannie, what is it that you think about Stu? And Jeannie will reply. That's the amazing thing. It's as if she's typing back. Obviously, I realize she's not typing back, it's me. But it's a way, I think, of tapping into my subconscious and just exploring things, you know, without having to do it in the actual document.
Yes.
In the manuscript.
Yeah. And there's something, I've done stuff like that too, where it's like, if I'm in the writing of it itself, like it's like you're too down in the weeds, all of the gardening metaphors, I apologize. But, like if you get out of it, it's almost like your brain just kind of shakes itself out a little bit, right? And then you get that perspective, and it makes all the difference.
Definitely. I think it's almost like messing around when you've got a certain word count and you're a long way in. It feels like if you're messing around in the actual document, you're going to mess it up.
Right. Yes.
You know, which is stupid, but there's something psychological that works about opening up a new document that allows you to play, I think.
Yeah, especially if you've written a certain amount of it and it feels good, right? Like then you're like, oh, I can't. And the way that I draft a novel is every new chapter is a completely fresh document, that when I'm happy with it, then it goes into a master document. So you never have that stress of like, oh, I have 100 and some odd pages. Like, I hope today lives up to the rest, right? And it's the same. Yeah, it's all the tricks that we do, right? To
fool ourselves. It's just a way of fooling ourselves to keep going.
Yeah, exactly. I also wanted to talk about music and the way that the siblings have this relationship with music, and how, like, anytime Jeannie is upset and she picks up her guitar and sings these really beautiful ballads, and there's also something there too that I felt like they themselves are characters almost in this ballad that someone hasn't written yet. Like there's like a mythic kind of quality to the way the story unfolds. And yeah, where did the music come from when you were creating them?
Well, first of all, I want to talk about that idea, because I've never thought of that. Write a song about Jeannie and Julius and this whole book and what happens at the end.
Right. Yeah.
I've never.
It's all there. It's your subconscious that did it.
Yeah, but I've never written a song before. I'm not sure, but that's the whole music thing really came because I try and work out a playlist that I can write the novel to, whichever novel it is, and often it's an artist's whole work or a number of albums, or sometimes just one album that I put on and I play for 2 years. It's over and over and over, and it helps set the tone of whatever it is I'm writing. It really helps with that. But Unsettled Ground, it was hard to find something that was right, and I tried all sorts of things. And then in the end, I just came up with 2 tracks. So I listened to 2 pieces of music for 2 years. And the first is an old English folk song called Polly Vaughan. And the version I listened to is sung by Tia Blake, who's she's dead now, but was an American folk singer. And then I also listened to a song written by my son, who's an acoustic guitarist, called We Roamed Through the Garden. And both those songs made it into the book. Their lyrics are in the book. And I maybe just because I was only listening to 2 songs, that Jeannie and Julius became folk musicians themselves. But I was writing it when my son Henry was living at home. He's now left home, and he wasn't working very much. He's kind of does gardening as well, but he wasn't doing very much gardening, so he was at home playing his guitar for literally kind of 8, 9 hours a day. And I would hear him in the bedroom next door, and he would play the same chord over and over again, finger picking, you know, to try and get it right, which is what Jeannie does. So an awful lot of stuff that Jeannie does, Henry would do, because I'm not musical at all. It's, you know, I picked it all up from him and really got him to check the musical aspects of the novel. But really, I think the music lifts it, you know. It's a very sad story, very quite bleak, but hopefully the music adds some relief to that, I think.
It does, and it also, the way the music sort of functions as this whole other valence or ability or talent or other lives that they could have lived, right? There's something there, which is partially, I think, why Jeannie's afraid of it a little bit. It's a little too real that like she could have done this. Yeah, maybe she recognizes that she could have had a different life, a different career through the music, and that is kind of slightly hinted at the end. Because there's someone who is quite interested in her music. But then I also think that Jeannie just isn't the kind of person that she would still be too scared to go and make a career out of it. And the music very much does for her all it needs to do, right? And I think like there's such an idea of, if you're a performer, well, you need to share it with the world. It's like, well, music can just be a thing that people do because it brings them joy and comfort and how they express themselves. But I loved all the musical stuff in it. Because I'm not musical at all, but I did at school when I was, how old would I have been, 13 or something. I learned the oboe for about a year, but I was very bad at the oboe, but I really like that kind of duck sound that the oboe makes. I was a bassoonist, so I know. Okay. And I thought, oh, this is cool, you know, playing the oboe is fun. And they said at school, but if you play the oboe, you have to play in the orchestra. The oboe is an orchestral instrument, Clay. You can't play oboe solos. And so I gave it up because I didn't want to be part of the orchestra, which is actually, now you've kind of come to point it out, is almost what Jeannie does. You know, she wants to play at home, but she doesn't want to play in public. Although when she finally does that, she does enjoy it. Yes, she does. She definitely does. And I think that also, that's part of her growing up in this. That's one of the steps of her kind of realizing these parts of herself out in the world. What attracts you to writing specifically about people like Jeannie and Julius, who are kind of on the margins? Like, what about that sort of liminality, the way that the novel talks about rural poverty in England, the way that it talks about illiteracy? Like, the way that Jeannie's illiteracy is lived was very moving to me in the book. And like, what drew you to that? Well, it first came about just because of the circumstances I wrote them into. So, you know, the fact, if I wanted, you know, I knew I had to get them to the caravan. That was the only thing I knew when I started writing. There was a point, and that wasn't going to be the end point. That was somewhere in the middle. So, you know, when I started writing, they live in such a way that they clearly don't have very much money. So therefore the kind of rural poverty aspect just kind of grew. And because I wanted to limit their ability to, you know, go out into the world, you know, if neither of them had any limitations, well, then they could just, you know, as soon as Dot died, they could go and get a job anywhere and there would be no novel. Right, exactly. So, you know, I gave them limitations in order to try and make life harder for them, and also just to make them work beyond that. So Julius, he can't go in any vehicle with an engine because he has terrible travel sickness. And Jeannie, as you say, is semi-literate. She can barely read and write. So it wasn't like I set out to write those things, but once I had decided that was the case, then obviously I went and did a lot of research and to try and find out what
poverty in the countryside specifically is like in England. And what I really discovered, first of all, was there's so little literature about it, so little, so few novels. In fact, I didn't find any contemporary fiction about English rural poverty, which really surprised me.
Yeah.
And since it's been published, there two books have been suggested to me, but they still don't quite cover it. But so that was really, really interesting. And then as I discovered more about illiteracy, especially, I don't know what the statistics are in the US, but in England, the statistic is 5% of English adults have a reading age of 5 or below, which was shocking to me, that number. And we just don't see that, the general public. And I was quite interested in what the solutions are if you're a person who struggles with those issues, how you get around them in everyday life if you don't want people to know about it.
Yeah. And everything, she tries to do everything, and there's some kind of impediment. Yeah.
And because writing and reading are so fundamental to me and to you, as writers.
Yeah.
I just take it for granted. That was the hardest thing, to write myself into the head of somebody who was illiterate. And I kept putting her in scenes because I wanted her to go and get a job, or I wanted her to go and see someone, or I wanted her to go to the shops. And I would get her there and think, oh, but you can't do that.
Yeah.
Because you can't read it. And that was really interesting.
Yeah. And heartbreaking in ways, and also just very like Jeannie's resilience, and also she's just like, she doesn't feel great about it, but like it's a very complex portrait of someone who, this is how she has to live. And she makes her way in the world, by finding other methods of communicating. I really enjoyed that part of the book. I want to talk a little bit now about writing process. And I noticed that you went to school for sculpture. I also have a background in art. I have a BFA in illustration, and I find I use the things I learned in that degree for writing all the time. And I'm so curious to hear if your experience with sculpture, do you see it in your writing, or do you see how that art degree influenced your ability to write prose?
Yeah, well, I find it really hard to pin that down, because maybe I went into art because of the kind of person I am as a writer, even though the art came first. Maybe they are kind of connected in that way, rather than the art and making art influencing the writing. It might just be, I'm that kind of person, and create in that way. I don't know. Because this is a silly thing to say, I only know the way that I write, obviously. So, but anyway, I think there are some similarities in how I created sculptures. So I often wouldn't plan. I would have a great big piece of stone, often, half a ton piece of stone, and would start carving. So it would be bigger than me, and I would start carving without really knowing what I was going to find. It was almost like,
that's a novel right there.
Yeah. And then, if something didn't quite fit, then I would change something else in order to kind of make it. I would work with what I had. And I think I do create books in the same way. And I think the other thing, maybe, again, this is just my personality, or maybe it's something I learned having done a sculpture degree, but a huge element of the sculpture degree was critiquing. So maybe it was even twice a week, the whole of the sculpture department.
You okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Love you.
We have. Oh, I think someone's unmuted. Can you mute yourself, please? I think it's Becky.
Sorry.
That's okay.
No problem. Yeah, so twice a week, the whole of my sculpture year and the tutor would go round to each studio space, and we'd all stand around the work and look at it and critique it in front of the sculptor who was making it, which at first was absolutely terrifying because people weren't always terribly constructive, and you know, they would say what they thought. I think we did learn to be more kind of kind about it, but what I found, even though that was really difficult to have people stand around and talk about my work in that way, I found that the work got better. And so I really enjoy being edited and having people critique my work, because I don't have to agree with everything, but I find it makes it much better. So yeah, what did you find with your illustration? How does that affect your writing?
Definitely the critique, you know, getting the sort of thicker skin to present your work to people and understanding how to take what's useful and how to like kind of not ignore, but like realize like, well, that's not useful to me or helpful to me, or that's something that's hard for me to hear and I need to sit with it for a while, right? Like that, just getting feedback on the kinds of things we create. But I also, you know, just in terms of being a visual artist, the sensitivity to things, like noticing things, noticing textures, I noticed that hypersensitivity helps me as I write too, in terms of like putting in details and verisimilitude and stuff like that. But the critique aspect, absolutely too. And just, you know, being a person who creates things and then someone has an opinion about it and then you go back and you work on it again, right? It's sort of, it's not a once and done kind of thing. It's a process. I see that showing up in my work. I love revision. I love it.
I don't like writing. I really only do it so that I can edit.
Can you rewrite? Now, do you have a writing group? Like how do you write? Like, and you said it takes like 1.5 years to get through a draft. Do you just kind of go into a bunker, or do you have people read it?
I am in a writing group, and there's 10 of us, and we've been meeting for 10 years once a month.
Wow.
So we know each other really well, and we know each other's style and type of work, and we know what we're each trying to achieve, even though obviously over those 10 years we've all worked on numerous novels and sometimes short stories. But so we send work to each other usually about a week before we're going to meet, and our limit is up to 3,000 words, which is normally around about a chapter. So these guys see, I send them a chapter or so every month. They send me all their work. Luckily, most people send less than 3,000 words, because we'd be reading a lot of words each week. You know, that's a lot of reading. And then obviously thinking about it and commenting on it. And then we come to the discussion, which used to be in the pub. Hopefully it will go back to the pub, but it's
someday.
One day. At the moment is online. And we take it in turns, but the writer can read out a couple of paragraphs of their piece of work, and then they have to be quiet, and everyone else discusses the work, and the writer is not allowed to say, but I meant this, but I meant that. They get told off if they say anything. And then we go around the group and we each take it in turns like that, and then either you're emailed people's comments, or if we meet in the pub and it's a physical piece of paper, you take it home. And then you can either ignore those things or implement them. And I find that if 9 people are saying the same kind of thing, then you probably need to listen. But if one person is saying it and the other's going, oh, well, I think this or I think that, then you don't necessarily have to take it on board.
Kind of splits the difference.
Are you in a writing group?
I am actually. I've just started during the pandemic. I've been meeting with some writer friends who are based around Boston, where I lived for 11 years. And it's just been nice to share things with people and like get to, even though it's just on Zoom, get to talk about what we're working with. But it's still new. It's only, I would say, the last 9 months we've been doing it. And it's really been emotionally lovely. And also just, it's nice to know that there are people who know what's kind of going on in your creative life, right?
Yeah.
Like in a way that feels like it's safe to share it with this small
Yeah.
group of people right now. I'm not quite ready for wide, I'm not quite ready to tweet about it yet, but like here it feels safe. So yeah, and I think to my detriment, I tend to go into a bunker when I'm working on stuff. I'll be like, give me your thoughts on the first 30 pages. And then I'm like, I'm gonna go write a whole book. And then you write the whole book and it's a mess. You would have saved yourself a lot of work if you brought some more people in the middle. But that could be, I don't know, I'm an only child. That could be my like, just gonna do it. So, oh wait, I had a question and then it went out of my brain. Oh no, you're in your writing room. Can you give us a tour of your space where the magic happens?
Yeah, I don't know about magic, but yeah, I'll take my camera off. So, and I'll try and hold steady. So these are the very lovely shelves that my
so beautiful
librarian husband made for me, and I have 3 typewriters, so he made little alcoves for them.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really hard to go. And then down below, if I can just get the camera right, are boxes where I kind of keep all my notes for previous novels.
It's so organized. It makes me so happy.
Behind me is a little day bed if I get a bit tired in the afternoons. I've just been writing far too hard. And then, yeah, back wall and this way. Oh, it's all kind of back to front for me. My father is just about to move house, so he gave me this very beautiful clock that we've had in our family for many years. So you probably can't hear it, but it has a really loud, proper tick.
Oh,
Yeah, gorgeous. And I live in a Victorian house, so I have a very lovely, can't really see it, Victorian fireplace down there. But
does it work?
No, it doesn't work. I think the chimney is blocked up. Yeah.
It's decorative.
Decorative. And then lots of I get sent lots and lots of lovely copies of my novels, so there's a big pile of them there. And then that's the messy bit down here.
All of my messy bit is like, it looks like my office is very clean. All of the messy bit is like all down here.
Oh yeah, I haven't gone the other side of the laptop, which or shown you the actual desk where
yeah, we don't talk about that part. No, I love the ticking clock. My grandmother had two clocks in like the living room and the dining room that both had very loud ticks, and that there's just such a comforting. You would think, I guess, some people be like, oh, I need to write faster, but no, the ticking is extremely soothing.
Yeah, it's a lovely sound. Yeah, really nice.
It is. So we're getting to we have about 15 minutes left. If anyone has questions in the chat, you can drop them in there. I'm going to go take a look and see if there's any questions right now. Claire, I loved your book. Hope you win the Women's Prize, says Nancy Koppel. Also, congratulations for being shortlisted. How does it feel?
Just, phenomenal. And so unexpected and amazing, because I've been, as a reader, because I didn't start writing until I was 40, and all those previous years I read and I read and I read, and I read lots of books on the Women's Prize. Previously it was called the Bailey's Prize, and then before that it was the Orange Prize. Was
it Bailey's after the alcohol?
Yeah, because they sponsored it. Yes, it was. So, I've been aware of this prize for so long, and then to suddenly find my book on it amongst some an amazing other books was really, really wonderful. And of course it would be lovely to win, but I don't, I don't expect that. But the winner is announced at what they're hoping to be a real life party, in-person party in London, central London.
Wow.
On the 7th of July. And actually, I just want to be able to go to the party.
Yes,
Please,
that
please
would
let
be
the party-
winning.
Yes.
Oh my
I can buy a
goodness.
dress. I have a reason to buy a new dress. I have somewhere to go. I have some other people to see, you know.
Yeah, no, it is amazing to imagine that as like a real thing that could happen.
Yeah, that would be great.
Question from Elizabeth. Claire, agreed on the prizes and you're deserving them. Could you speak about your setting your novels on the seams of civilization? I love that.
Oh no, sorry, I missed that. Setting novels on
The seams of civilization. Like
What,
like a
how-
seam, like a dress seam, like the seams.
as in kind of the edges of civilization.
Yeah, I think that's
She's nodding. Yeah, I guess I do. It's not, perhaps that comes back to your question, Kate, about you know, people on the margins and people who are slightly odd that I'm interested in. And you know, maybe it's just partly because for me they make interesting characters, and often I'm just trying to write the kind of book that I like to read, and I like to read books about slightly odd people,
Same.
eccentrics and oddballs and weirdos. I think they make very interesting characters, and actually I think we all have a little bit of that in us. I think we probably, you know, that a lot of us know how to hide that in kind of public to appear normal, whatever normal is. But probably when we're at home in our own houses on our own, we're all a little bit weird, aren't we?
It's so true. So I've been working from home. I work at a university here in the States, and I realized today is I'm just like doing my work with headphones, singing out loud. I'm like, I don't think they're gonna let me in the office. Like not appropriate behavior.
Yeah,
Like, this is what I've acclimated to. But
also, you know, it's not just that, it's also the odd behaviors that we all probably do. Like, you know, I can't think of one right now, but I'm sure I do lots of things. Like I will, I know that if I'm having poached eggs, I will only eat them by removing the white first, and then you have to have the perfect yolk, and then you can cut the yolk so that it spreads over the toast. Otherwise I cannot eat my poached egg. So, you know, don't we all have little things like that? Or maybe that's just me, I don't know.
no, I mean, there's something about that, the process, that's very satisfying.
Yeah, but I'm sure we all have odd little things like that. I like to hope that we do, but I'm interested in those. I'm just I don't know if those are quite the seams of civilization, but the kind of margins of normality and what's kind of beyond that do interest me. It's true.
Yeah, like a liminal space is usually where things will be meeting that don't normally, and interesting things can occur. Bryn asks, I see iron and wine, she says. I think that's your poster in the back. Will you talk about our endless numbered days and the relationship between the book and the music?
Yeah, so Iron and Wine is a band, but in fact it's just one man called Sam Bean. And I've always, well, not always, but I have for a very long time loved his music. And when I was writing Our Endless Numbered Days, it was his music that I wrote the book to. And the book had lots of working titles, most of which I can't remember right now, but you know, none of them were quite right. But they had, I was working with various titles. The Briar Rose, that was it. For a long time it's called The Briar Rose. And then I must have been changing albums or something like that. And I realized that Iron and Wine has an album called Our Endless Numbered Days. And luckily for me, titles aren't copyrighted. So yes. I borrowed the name of his album and thought this is absolutely right for this book, because it's about a father who takes his daughter off to the forest, to a German forest, And when they get there, he tells them that the rest of the world has disappeared, and then they're the last two people alive. And Peggy, the main character, remains in the forest for the next 8 to 9 years before she makes it home. So our endless numbered days just absolutely worked. And I have tried, there have been various times when Sam Bean, aka Iron and Wine, have almost met, but not quite. So he's played at various festivals where I have been speaking in the books tent, and I've tried to kind of engineer a meeting, but it's never actually happened. So I don't know if he knows that I stole his title or not. But maybe if he does, maybe he's avoiding me and he does know. Because he's just really cross with me. I don't know.
It's too funny. I feel like you are destined to meet him at some point. And I'm sure who could be cross? Who could be cross with that kind of like a tribute? Yeah,
I do acknowledge it in the book, in the acknowledgements. You know, it's not like I pretend I happen to come up, think about the title all by myself. You know.
It is very handy the titles aren't copyrighted, though. I also have made use of that. Any other questions? I think we have time for a few more. I do have a few more questions to ask. What have you been reading right now, or watching, or listening to?
I have been watching, I'm absolutely addicted to this on Netflix, Call My Agent.
Called what?
It's
My Agent?
Call My Agent.
Call My Agent, okay.
I don't know if that's available on Netflix in the US, but it's a French series, and it's about an actor's agency in Paris. If you can get it, you should watch it. It's absolutely brilliant. That's what I've been watching. I'm reading this, which I get very luckily as an author, I get sent lots of proofs. In fact, that's how I was sent yours. That's kind of how we're here tonight speaking. So yeah, publishers send me lots of books to ask, would you like to read this? Would you like to provide a quote for the cover? And I do dismiss probably, I don't know, 90% of them, because I read the first 10 pages and they're just not really for me. But yours was, I loved it.
Thank you so much.
But I'm reading this at the moment, The Paper Palace. She is an American author, Miranda Cowley Heller. And it certainly comes out here in July. I'm not sure when it comes out in the US. And I absolutely love it. So you should look out for that. I'm sure it will be published in the US because it's set in the US and she's a US author.
It's a fantastic title, The Paper Palace.
Paper Palace, yeah. I think the cover's different in the US. But yeah.
Are there differences between the US version and the UK version of Unsettled Ground?
Yeah, I'll show you. Well, I can show you the cover first of all. So that's that's the UK version and that's the US version. Both of them so beautiful. And there are slight differences in the text, but not in the story. And I was trying to remember in what the differences are for Unsettled Ground, and I can't remember, but there have been some. But I remembered some from Bitter Orange, the previous book. So in England and in Bitter Orange, they eat boiled eggs and soldiers. But I understand in America, everybody goes, "What are soldiers?"
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine it's maybe some kind of a sausage, but
no, it's toast that you slice into long slices. See, Nancy knows, so that you can take the top off your boiled egg and dip your toast in.
I mean, that's why don't we have that?
Yeah, I don't know, because children in England, children are brought up on boiled eggs and soldiers. Because you can line them up like little soldiers, but I don't know. Might as well call them boiled eggs and sticks. I mean, I don't know why you call them soldiers. And then also, they also eat cauliflower cheese.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, but I think you call it cauliflower in cheese sauce.
That makes more. That sounds like a more kind of familiar
But to us, we have macaroni cheese, we have cauliflower
Oh,
cheese.
cheese. Yep.
Just, I don't know. But so I think what my editor really in America is trying to do when she suggests those kinds of changes is just to stop American readers being taken out of the story by going, soldiers? What soldiers?
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I love reading books cross-culturally for that kind of like embedded experience, but I definitely would have been like, soldiers, huh?
Yeah. So I don't have any problem with saying boiled eggs and slices of toast to make the reading experience smoother, that's fine. And my American publishers don't expect me to change, pavement to sidewalk or any of those
lorry, etc.
Yeah. So I'm really happy with the very minor changes that happen. But in the copy editing, because there's a UK copy editor and an American copy editor, and the amount of commas that go in and come out and go in and come out, and colons and semicolons, and are speech marks double or are they single?
Yep. If you're hyphens, so much of that. I mean, I love copy editing. I'm a complete nerd for it, but it's so dependent on whatever the house style is. And like neither is right and neither is wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And by the time you've got to that stage in a novel, I really literally have read the book maybe 20 times.
You're very ready to be done. Ready.
Yeah, people always ask, aren't you sad to see your authors go and your characters go, and don't you think about them more, and don't you wish to write more about them? No. I've had enough of you.
I completely agree. That's something that I feel like I didn't appreciate that until I kind of lived through it. But you're like, I'm sick of it. I'm done. I'm ready. Go away. Go live your life.
Yeah. Give me the next book, please.
Yes. Oh, any other questions? It's 6:30. Claire, this has been so delightful.
It's been so easy and lovely to chat to you. Been great
a pleasure.
fun.
A pleasure.
And thank you to Javier for hosting us.
Oh, I'm so glad we could work this out. As we were speaking in the green room, we booked this event like 4 or 5 months ago, and we have been just slowly champing at the bit, waiting for it to happen. And we couldn't have asked for a better event. Thank you guys so much. And it's our kickoff event, so it's all downhill from here for every author that shows up on our
We're just
store.
here to set the bar high. It's fine.
Exactly. This is to all you authors that are going to be in the show. Bring your A game, because this was a good one. Yeah, and once again, thank everyone for showing up. You can purchase copies of Unsettled Ground. This is the ARC, it's not the finished copy. And Tuesday Mooney Talks to Ghosts through our website. Come into the store, we will have signed copies. We have, because of COVID and in lieu of signed copies, we have these awesome signed book plates. They are gorgeous. And also, Kate was nice enough to send these really cool postcards. So you'll get one of those as well. Come check us out, exileandbookfell.com. All the information is in the chat. And if you want to come back and watch us again, which you should, we post these on our website and also on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. So thanks everyone for coming. Kate, Claire, this was awesome. Let's do it again next year.
Pleasure. It's been great fun.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, anytime you're in Bethlehem, let me know. We can hang out.
That would be lovely.
Thanks again, you guys. Have a good night. And good luck on your next event, Kate.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, yes. Good luck.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Claire.
Have
We'll
a
talk
great
soon.
night.
Bye.